Everyone, good evening. I hope you guys can hear me and see me well. If things are good from my side, just leave a comment in the chat box so that I know things are good and we can start in a couple of minutes. Right. So I hope you guys can hear me and see me well. Just to confirm things, it will be great if you can just put yes something to confirm and inform me that you guys can hear me and see me well. That one message that's gonna come gives me a lot of confidence. It takes time, but I know. Otherwise, I might be. Just let me check once. Alright, so good evening, Rishika. So I hope you can hear me and see the PPT. Three things. Thank you. And one more thing, we're gonna start in a couple of minutes. It's a 7:31, so maybe 1 to 2 minutes more. Just to let all of you know, this is a live session that we're trying to help out students who are looking to prepare for IELTS, who have a plan, or maybe who are already preparing to prepare for IELTS, or maybe take IELTS exam in the next few weeks or months. The goal is to make it more interactive. So if at all it's just a one-way communication, yes, it is true that it's a webinar where I'm going to talk for the most of the time. So I'll make sure that I'll deliver the maximum value for you, every minute you spend in this. But I would also want that you will get much more if you can be a little bit more active in terms of participating, asking questions, maybe responding, so that things will be a two-way communication and it's going to be a little bit more positive for all of us around. Right, great. Thanks a lot for this responses. So before we start, a couple of quick question. So tell me, why are you planning to take IELTS? A simple line, right? To study, pursue higher studies, or maybe to go abroad for work, immigrate purpose. So just let me know so that I know how many of you here are for study purpose, how many of you are here for the work purpose, which IELTS suits you and all of that. So we're gonna talk all of that about, but just to know, a quick, comments in the chat box, at least 4 5 answers would let me know what kind of mix I have in terms of the audience that we have today. Right, is it for the work, is it for the study purpose, higher studies in US, UK, Canada, Australia? Is it about immigrating to Canada, Australia? Work purpose, Gyan Ranjan, great. Good evening, Ishika. Good evening, Jacinta. Study, sir, Australia. Okay, Smith Kund. That's good. Come on, few more people. Just to let me know, there's one for the work, one for the study. Another 2 3 answers and we'll start the session, so that I know what's the mix of the audience we have here. And I'll try to talk a little bit more accordingly, right? It's more people who are into the higher studies, or it's more people with the work purpose, so maybe talk about the academic or general training a little bit more focused. Okay, Navin, you're also looking for work. Great. Right, couple more. Are you good to go? Immigration, Ridish, great. And studies, Trishika, great. So it's a mix of it, I guess. The people have partially looking at higher studies and some of you are looking for work. So we'll try to balance it out. Great. Ekta, you want to crack IELTS academic, that's a good spirit. Magi, Vasant, you're looking for immigration PR. Perfect. So, just a brief intro about the team. So, I am Jaydeep, one of the founders of the company GT Cube. You can look at me here. So, I did my engineering from BITS Pilani and then MBA from IIM, worked as a management consultant with BCG. I quit to start this company along with my friends who were also my batchmates at IIM. A couple more people who are passionate about education space, you can find them, right? And you can see our scores in exams like CAT, GRE, GMAT. We have been mentoring students over the last 5 years, with our experience and, passion for the education. And we have our IELTS trainer, Megha Shukla, who has more than 5 years of experience in training thousands of students preparing for IELTS. So that's about the team. What exactly are we going to discuss today, right? So let's just briefly touch upon it. It's going to be around a 45-minute session that we plan. So there will be a lot of talking done by me, but make sure that I will make sure that there is enough time for question and answers. We will not end the session without answering your questions. But we would discuss all these important aspects. So I'm expecting that most of the general questions would be answered. By chance, if you still have questions, don't worry. You can ask it in the comments. If you are watching this in our website and you're not able to see the chat box on the right or the bottom, you can click on the link which is there as a YouTube link. You can watch it in YouTube app and you can also parallelly watch and comment. So the first question, should you take IELTS exam? So why should one take IELTS exam? We're going to briefly touch upon it. Then the standard question that we keep hearing about the options you have, which exam should I take? So we're going to briefly compare and give us our verdict, our point of view on this. Then talk about the academic and general training, 2 IELTS exams, the pattern, the most important thing, the scoring system, the criteria on which you will be graded in each module, and then a quintessential question of, can I prepare for IELTS on my own? Do I need any guidance? Can I not do it? I heard it's easy. So we will talk about it briefly. Then we're going to talk about the resources that are available that you can use for your preparation. Then we're going to touch about the 3 frequently asked questions. Number 1, which one should I go for when I'm taking IELTS? Is it British Council conducted exam or should I go for IDP? If you don't know what these are, don't worry. I'm going to touch upon it. But those of you who already are heard and might have this question already, we're going to answer this. Computer versus paper based. So you'll have a question of, should I take a computer or a paper based IELTS? Which one is better for me? And the third one, IELTS in the lockdown or COVID has started something called IELTS, test that can be taken from home. So we're going to talk about how effective is it and should you go for it and all of that, right? So let's get started. So as I said, you can ask your questions in the comments. I will be constantly looking at the chat at frequent intervals, and if I feel that it is the right time to answer the question, I would definitely take it up. If by chance I don't take it up, don't think that I've ignored it. I'll definitely answer it at the end. I will promise you that we'll not end the session without answering your questions. If I can answer it, I will definitely do it to my maximum capacity. Now, let's start it. What does IELTS stand for? Anyone can help me out with this? What does this IELTS stands for? Full form. Not really a quiz question, but a question to just get started of it. What does IELTS stand for? The full form of it. You don't get any grade points for this, but a question to just start off with. See how attentive are you, or how attentive you are. International English Language Testing System. Perfect. So that's the full form of it. How does it matter? It doesn't really matter to us, but what it does is it tests your English language skills, but that's it. IELTS is an exam which tests our proficiency, your skill, right, at English language. For people who wants to study or work in a country where English is the medium of communication. It is scored on a scale of 1 to 9. So you will be getting points like a band score of 6, 5.5, 6.5, 7, 7.5 at a 0.5 scales or intervals. IELTS is available at more than 1600 plus across the world, and it's the most widely accepted English exam. It's called English Language Proficiency Test, the test that's the most widely accepted one. It's accepted by almost 11,000 organizations and universities across 145 countries, right? So that is the reason why people do prefer to take IELTS because that's the most widely accepted. So you are taking this test to apply for different countries, different universities. So if that's the most widely accepted, it makes sense for you to take that as an important exam. So should you take IELTS, or who should take IELTS, right? If you fall into one of these two categories, then yes, you should be looking at IELTS. If not, then sorry, the rest of the video or the webinar doesn't make a lot of sense for you. Maybe you can drop off as well. So if you are planning to pursue higher studies like your masters, maybe your bachelor's, you're completing your 10th and 12th and you're trying to get school, college to the bachelor's or master's or PhD, the doctoral programs across the countries like English speaking countries like US, UK, Canada, even Germany, though it's German, you would ideally apply for English courses. So you should be taking IELTS exam to prove your proficiency or skills in English. So that's for the students to prove their capacity or ability to learn and communicate in English. The second type of people are ones who wants to migrate to a foreign country for work purpose. So Canada is the one which is at a very, very huge demand right now because they've opened the gates for immigrants and they're giving the PRs relatively easier. So people are applying a lot to that. So that's a lot of people applying for Canada PR who needs to take IELTS. For Australia, that has been always the case. PT is another exam you can take, but IELTS is one of the top exam you can take to apply for your PR. So IELTS is asked by companies across 100 plus countries to give jobs to its applicants. Countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, for its PR applications, they do ask you to submit your IELTS score. So if you belong to one of these two categories, then you are at the right place and we are going to get a lot of useful information for the rest of the session. So the next question is comparing IELTS, TOEFL and PTE. So this is more focused for the academic people. PTE makes sense for people who are trying to immigrate to Australia. So I'm not going to go too much into these details, but highlight the differences. So IELTS is the only exam which is still letting you attempt the exam in paper based. So by chance, if you're someone who is more comfortable taking a paper based test, you don't have a choice of taking that in TOEFL and PTE. So you might be find more convenience in taking an IELTS test. Yes, it also has computer based, no doubt. All three of them are computer based. IELTS is the only one with paper based as an option. IELTS is the only test where you will be doing a face-to-face speaking. You will be sitting in front of a person and you will be doing an interview and sort of other questions to test your speaking skills. TOEFL and PTE, they would be asking you a question and you would be asked to record into your microphone. So for some students, it might make sense for them to actually talk to a person and they find it more comfortable and easier to do. Some people find it more relaxing and easy if they do talk to a computer because they don't see a human in front of them. They don't feel that nervousness. They feel a little bit more relaxed. So you have to choose what suits you. But one thing I can tell you, TOEFL and PT have a little bit of focus on the accent. So you will be penalized if you have a heavy accent, not at a normal level. That's not a big worry. IELTS does not grade you on accent. So as long as you have proper pronunciation and other aspects of speaking, you don't really have to worry if you have a heavier accent. So relatively people who feel they have heavier accent, IELTS makes a little bit more sense for you to get a better score. The more duration is more or less 3 to 4 hours. The cost that's increased right now recently, but more or less the same amount. The scoring scales are different, but doesn't matter because when you apply to a university, for example, they say get 90 and above in TOEFL, which is equivalent to 6.5 above in IELTS. So they know how much in IELTS is equal to the score in TOEFL and PT. So you don't really have to see an advantage and disadvantage per se in it. The difference that you would see, which would be a major point of taking a decision for people, is this: that all the tests would check your 4 communication modules: listening, reading, writing and speaking. But the difference is in these 2 tests, TOEFL and PT, you have something called integrated tasks. That is, for example, they would give you an essay to read. Okay, you have read the essay, great. Then they will be asking you to write a small answer to a subjective question. So you need to show your writing skills. You need to write 50 words, 100 words for a question asked based on the essay. If you have not done the reading part well, even though you do good in writing, your skills are good in writing, you might not score well because your input is not understood well by you. Sometimes they will also ask you to do a speaking into it. Same story. If you have not read the passage well and understood it well, you might struggle with your speaking. Or you understood the passage well, but because your speaking or writing skills are not so good, you might not communicate well and get a lower score. So these are called integrated tasks where they mix multiple modules and test your skills. Whereas IELTS, there are 4 different modules and 4 sections. Each of them are clearly bifurcated and they don't overlap each other. So which means you can score a lot in areas where you're strong and it does not have any negative impact due to your weakness. So a lot of students find this to be one of the major worry in these exams, TOEFL and PT. To be very frank, if you ask me, if you are very comfortable with the fundamental skills of language, you don't have to worry about any of these exams. They do a good job. You can prepare, focus on one, take practice, understand the tips and strategies and score well. But if you are having some issues at a fundamental level, there is a benefit of attempting IELTS because that's relatively perceived to be easier of these 3 across the student community. That's why I would suggest you to take it. Finally, the score would more or less come in 1 week for all the computer based tests. There's no difference. If you take a paper based test for IELTS, you have to wait for another week. So if you have a hurry, maybe you have to choose a computer based test. But if you have enough time, if you plan things well, you can go for this as well. So that's broadly the difference. What I would recommend is this. If you are considering, you can take IELTS and TOEFL mock test, see what suits you better and decide on it. So to just add, this is what we would recommend. If you are planning to go for US for higher studies, you can take either of this exam and you won't go wrong. Every university in US is accepting TOEFL and 99.9% of universities in US accept IELTS. So I can just count with my fingers the universities which do not accept IELTS but TOEFL. So that way we would say that people can go blindly with one of these tests and you would be eligible to apply to all the universities in US. If you're going to UK, just go with IELTS. That's the one which is most widely accepted. Canada also is the most widely accepted. For Australia, you will do good with either of them, PT or IELTS. For Germany and Europe, again, the rest of Europe like France, Norway, Netherlands, you can go for IELTS as well. That's fundamentally the biggest advantage with IELTS is its acceptability or acceptance across the world. Right, relatively TOEFL and PT are less accepted across the world. So if you are looking at multiple countries, you can go for it. If you are a person who is looking at immigration purpose, Canada, no questions asked, it's IELTS. For Australia, you'll do good with either of them, so you don't have to worry about them. But you have to choose what suits you better, because I have seen some people feeling PT is better for them, some people believing that IELTS is better for them. So I do not have a fixed answer for it. What I would recommend is if you are looking for an immigration purpose for Australia, look at both the exam patterns, take a mock to assess what suits you better and then accordingly decide the one which you should focus on. So let's move forward on the IELTS academic and general training. So once you've understood these differences, there are 2 types of IELTS tests. If you are not aware of it, so this is going to be a useful thing. So academic and general training. Academic is a test which is for people applying for higher education in an English speaking environment. So the type of questions asked are slightly different compared to general training. They focus more on a student who is going to enter into a university and an academic atmosphere and should be able to read the research papers, journals and all of that, textbooks and all. But as a general training is for those who are trying to settle down in English speaking countries with a job, work experience and training programs like migrating to Australia, Canada, New Zealand and UK. And they focus more on fundamental survival skills. Can this person survive in the country? Can they go to a shop and buy the product? Can he talk to the colleagues in the office? So they just look at the social and workplace context. Relatively, general training is an easier exam. But the most important thing, it doesn't matter whether it's easy or not. If your purpose is to go for higher studies, you should take academic tests only. Because universities clearly mention you need to submit IELTS academic score. Doesn't matter if you get 9 out of 9 in general training, this score is not even looked upon by universities. So if your goal is to apply for higher studies, take academic. If your goal is to go for the purpose, the migration purpose, you are applying for PR to Canada or Australia, anything, you should be taking general training. Doesn't matter how much you score in academic, it is not accepted by the applications. So some students feel a confusion in this, that they think, so I'm trying to go to US or Canada to pursue my masters, then my goal is to settle down for a job to get a PR. So should I take academic or general? You are entering the Canada by the university or with the help of an admit from university. For the admission, you should take academic. That's it. You don't have to take general training later. So just focus on entering into a university or a country, which should be done by academic test. So that's a simple thing that you should understand, because it's a very sad thing. I've seen some students or people who take wrong test after paying 14,000, 15,000 and realizing that this is not the right test that you should have taken. It's a huge pain to reattempt, plus the amount of money you're spending. The next one is the pattern. This is the most important thing. We're going to spend next 15-20 minutes on it. So let's focus on this. Listening. As I said, I will be talking about academic and the the general training. There will be few differences. I'm going to highlight them. The listening is same for both. It's going to be same for both, irrespective of what you're attempting, academic or general training. You would be having 40 questions. You'll be having 40 questions. You will be given 30 minutes plus 10 minutes transfer time if you're taking a paper-based test. If you're taking a computer-based test, you won't have this 10 minutes transfer time. Transfer time means you will be given additional time to shift your answers from a rough sheet to the main answer sheet. So if you are taking a paper-based, you need to shift that. If it's a computer-based, you would already be filling it. So that way you don't have this time. So again, some students find it easier to note down in rough sheet first and then mark it later because they can focus more on the listening. Right, so for that purpose, what I would say, you have to decide what suits you better, because if you're taking a computer based test, you are expected to listen and then answer it then and there. So that might confuse some students that they cannot multitask. So I see some students struggling with it. So some people find paper based easier. So you should try to understand that. So the 4 types of audio clips would be played for you, like in a conversation between 2 people in a social context, a monologue of 1 person talking, a conversation up to 4 people. Generally you see 2 or 3 people, you don't see 4 that frequently, but mostly 2 to 3 people talking on a monologue on academic subject, more like a university lecture. If you see, the difficulty is increasing. The difficulty is increasing as you see go down. It's easy to listen to a social context, that you're calling a shop or a gym asking for a subscription, compared to a university lecture talking on a science topic or a psychology topic that you have to you have to listen and understand what's being explained over there. So difficulty keeps increasing. 10 questions for each, and there are almost 11 types of questions that are being asked in the listening, right? Multiple choice questions and all of other matching, plan, map, labeling and all of that. This is where practice would help you again. This is where I would recommend a lot of students to do not underestimate the power of practice, mock tests and all. Right? Yes, the listening is not that hard if you are very conversant with English, if you're already used to listening to well-speaking people, English-speaking people. But the point is, getting used to these patterns is very important, because you should ideally get as close as possible to 40, because listening is the easiest module of all the 4. So if you cannot get 8 to 9 out of 9, you are missing out a chance to maximize your score in IELTS. So that's why don't underappreciate it, rather underestimate it. That's a point I would say. Each question is worth 1 mark and there is no negative marking in IELTS, which means you should not leave any question. Try to attempt as much as possible, at least make a guess. So Jacinta, if you talk about GRE, that is for US and Germany, that's to show your analytical ability. So we do have a session tomorrow. If you are more interested, you can attend that in the morning. You can follow us, or you can, you'll get a mail for that as well. So about GRE, but for IELTS, this is something to prove your English skill set, whereas GRE is to prove your analytical ability. That is how well you can think. That's required to apply for universities in US and Germany. That's the only set of countries that would ask you. If you talk about UK, Canada, you really don't need to take GRE. Some of the European universities and almost many of the US universities would be asking you for GRE score as well. You need to take both. You need to take an English test plus GRE, not just one of them. Then comes the bands. How exactly would my score be converted from a score of 1 to 9? Because as I said, everything is graded from 1 to 9. So this is how you do it. If you get everything correct, you get a 9. Even if you make 1 mistake, you will still get 9. If you make 2 to 3 mistakes, you will be getting an 8.5 band. If you make 3 to 4 mistakes or 4 to 5 mistakes, you will be getting 8 bands. So that is how the bands would be slowly, you will be moving around so that you get your listening score. So let's say a student got 35 correct in out of 40, he will be getting an 8 band in the listening. So you will be given individual band scores, then the overall average would give you the overall score. Then the reading, academic reading and general reading. This is where you will see a drastic difference in the IELTS pattern for academic and general training people. In academic reading, you would be given 3 passages. Right? Normally 700 to 800 words. On the whole, you are expected to read 2000 words. The 3 passages together would be 2000 to 2100 words. You will be given 60 minutes and you will be asked 40 questions from these 3 passages. There are almost 12 to 13 types of questions. You should be conversant and very comfortable with while attempting the reading section. The texts are taken from the books, journals, magazines, newspaper, which have been written for non-specialist audience, right? So generally they would be general interest, but they would also take, if you observe it from the research papers, right, you have to understand they should be understood by people who are entering undergraduate or postgraduate program. That's why they would be more complicated, right? You have to understand that the quality or the complication of the text would be harder than the general training. So this would be like a research paper submission. That would be one of the passage you might see. So the technical jargons, the quality of the language and the complexity of sentences would be harder in academic compared to general training. So I'll show you what you will see in general training, but this would be a little bit harder. You'll have 40 questions, 2,100 words you have to read in 60 minutes. No negative marking, same story again. You'll be asked different set of questions which you need to answer. When it comes to general training, you would see actually 4 to 5 passages. The number of passages will be more, but the total words would be again 2,000 to 2,100 words, as I said. Right, there are 3 sections. Section 1 may contain 2 to 3 passages. Section 2 may contain 2 passages and section 3 contains 1 long passage. So section 3 is equal to academic level. This is the only passage which will be equal to academic difficulty in general training. The first 2 sections are easier than the academic and more day-to-day life. For example, one of the section 1 question or passage you could see would be, let's say you purchased a washing machine, you would be given an instruction manual of how to operate the washing machine. So it's not very hard to read and understand this. This is something even we do in India. So this is more like looking at your day-to-day skills. Or you might be given a notice being sticked up in your apartment about garbage disposal. So you should be able to listen or read it and understand the information given. So they would be testing. The first section is a social survival, like notices, advertisements. The second section is workplace survival, which would be looking at your job descriptions, contracts, etc. And the third is what you would be seeing more academic or challenging research journal paper like newspapers, magazines and all of that. So this is the hardest of the lot to read and understand. These are more easier ones to do. So same story, 60 minutes, 40 questions and each question worth 1 mark, no negative marking. So to make you understand how the scoring is done, you will observe some difference here. You see, to get 8 band in academic reading, even if you get 35 correct, you will get it. But the same 8 band, you will have to get 38 correct in general. As I said, because this is easier to score than the academic, they do give you lesser bands for same number of raw score, the same amount of raw score you score. So that's a difference you see in academic and general. But on a generic level, I would say academic is harder than the general training to read. So that's a difference you will see. Then the writing part, this here again, it's half same and half different. So you will see there are 2 writing tasks given. The task 1 in academic writing is called pictorial interpretation. They would be giving you graphs. You need to read like a bar graph, a line graph or a tabular data. You need to read and write a 150 word essay on it. The task 2 is an opinion based essay, which is same for both academic and general training people. And this is the most important one because the weightage given your final band score is twice this one. So this is much more important for anyone who is attempting the writing section. So 150 words for the charts and the graphs, and for task 2 you will be asked to write 250 words, and that's why in 1 hour you will be recommended to spend 40 minutes on this, whereas only you spend 20 minutes. Smith, I'll show you a sample. Just give me a second, I'll show you a sample. I don't have anything ready made, but I'll show you a sample. But like for example, a story will be like this, okay? They will be showing you a line graph, let's say like this. The gold prices in the last 5 years in India. Let's say this is what you see like 2000, 2005, something like this, over the last 2 decades that they're showing the gold prices. So they would give you this, they will give you a title and they would ask you to summarize this graph, right? Describe the visual information in your own words, around 150 words. So you should say that the price has been consistently increasing over the last 2 decades. There have been few blips in the price. Despite that, we have been seeing consistent increase over the last 2 decades. So something of that sort, you need to write observations about some dips, some ups, summarize and highlight some of the important observations. So this is one of the example I can show. I'll tell you another way how you can look at some more examples to get a sense of it. I'll do that a bit later. So the second one is the task 2, as I said, is to respond to an essay. This will be more like a generic topic. It's like, let's say in Western nations and Western European countries, a lot of people believe that youngsters should go out for work, post their high school before joining university to actually understand life better. Discuss the advantage and disadvantage of this opinion. So this is one of the questions you'll get. It's an essay, a opinion based essay. Advantages and disadvantages are being asked. You need to write 250 words to describe this topic that's being given. So some topic, like they would say people believe pollution is the major reason behind the cyclones and tsunamis being created. Discuss or put out your opinion on this. So something of that sort You don't need to know any technical information or a lot of general knowledge. It's a very generic topic, and they test your language skills, not your technical or general knowledge that you have. So you don't have to worry about that. So when you talk about the general training, task 2 is the same. You still have to do an essay, opinion based essay. It's the task 1 where you will be asked to write a letter. You would be asked to write a letter. That's what you will see as a difference. Task 1 is a letter, task 2 is essay that you will be asked to attempt. So task 2 is same for both general and academic. The difference is only task 1. General training you do a letter, here you do a pictorial interpretation in the academic people. So what does a letter look like? There are 3 types of letters, right? Formal, semi-formal, informal. Let's say you're writing out to a friend to see if he's interested to buy a TV. Or maybe you're writing out to your boss asking for a request, a formal request on some professional work. That's a formal thing. Maybe you're reaching out to a community head, or maybe a librarian, or some a member at a gym asking for subscription details or something. So that's a semi-formal. So they would give you a topic, they would give you what elements needs to be touched in this letter, and you should be writing a letter using a proper salutations and all of that. So you should follow those things, right? Structure of this. This is where writing is the most hardest one. Knowing the structures would help you to score really well. There are 2-3 things that will help you: knowing the structures, knowing the cohesive devices. I'll talk about the scoring, you'll understand a bit more. So there are few things that can help you to score better. Yes, Praveen, IELTS is required for work visa if the countries that you're looking at are like US, UK, Australia, Canada. If you're looking for the work visa, that depends on the company you're applying to and the country you're applying to. So maybe Japan, if you ask, they don't ask for IELTS, most probably. Maybe some companies would ask. As a country as such, they do not. So it depends on the country. If it's an English speaking nation and you're applying for an international company, you should be expecting them to ask you to submit your IELTS score. So what is the assessment criteria? You have 4 criteria, 4 parameters that they will use to assess your writing performance. The first thing is your task achievement, how well you have responded to the given question. Like if it's a letter, if it's an essay, if it's a graph, how well you have answered the given task. If you are writing nonsense, not relevant information, then you will get a very poor score here. If you have written relevant stuff, you will get a very high score. That's about the relevance part, about how sensible you have written the topic, and it's a number of words. Have you achieved 150 to 50 words? All of those things would come into the task achievement and response. Coherence and cohesion would be the flow of your ideas. When someone is reading, is the reader feeling that you have written or structured the ideas in a very proper manner? So that is something that you will be checked in coherence and cohesion. This is where having structures like body paragraphs, the introduction, conclusion, how you should touch up a point, plus to make it more cohesive and read it more in a fluent manner, you should use cohesive devices. In order to do this, comma, something is done, rather than saying in some normal words. Additionally, instead of using, if you're talking about 2 advantages, the first advantage is something. In addition to that, we also see another advantage. So these are some cohesive devices which are using to continue the flow and make it more fluent when someone is reading it. So knowing these ones and using it will improve your band score. This is where again practice and support helps you. Lexical resource, your vocabulary. How diverse is your vocabulary and how advanced is your vocabulary, right? Use words which are less frequently used, which are high level vocabulary. You will get a better score. You should use different words. You should not use increasing significantly, right? You should drastically increasing, using a huge increment in the performance or whatever. So you have to use different words for the same purpose in the passage or in the writing to get a better score. Finally, your grammar and your accuracy. So this is coming to more about grammar. Are you following the tenses properly? The subject verb agreement, right? The basic grammar rules, the spellings, right? All of these things, the accuracy would be more like the spellings and all of that. So they will score on it. So you will be scored on 1 to 9 for all 4 of them. Like let's say you have done good in terms of relevance, you're getting 7. You have used good structure and cohesive devices, you might get 8. But your vocabulary is not great, you might get 5. And you did grammatical mistakes at a continuous parts of passage, you might get 5. So your overall score will be 7 plus 8 plus 5 plus 5 by 4. So that means you will be getting 25 by 4, which is equal to 6.25, which will be rounded to 6.5 as such. This is how you will be getting your band score. So you should be taking care of all 4 of them. This is where I feel a lot of students make mistake. You might be writing well according to you. the normal English wise, your grammatical wise, you might be fine, but maybe you don't have the habit of using different words in terms of vocabulary. Maybe you don't structure things well, you don't use cohesive devices, you don't use complex and compound sentences. You might have not realized that you are not doing all of this, and you have been doing well in your language, but IELTS has its own criteria and you have to follow it to get the higher band score. Despite having fundamental writing skills, if you don't follow the simple things, you will be getting a lower band score. This is where understanding how the scoring is done, what are the tips and tricks, that is what you need to do to improve your band score. So the speaking is the last one I'm going to talk about. So speaking is divided into 3 sections. Right, the first section, the examiner will ask you general questions and you need to answer in 45 seconds to 1 minute as an answer. Like let's say they ask you what is your favorite holiday spot. Do you like your, whom do you like the most in your family? Or what's your favorite food? What's your favorite hobby? Something of that sort. It will be more about your family, your home, your work. You don't need to have any general knowledge. They don't ask you, why do you think as Trump lost the last elections? Do you think Narendra Modi's government should have done better with the COVID vaccination? So they don't really get into political, or they don't get into any knowledge or factual information. They will be asking things that are relevant to you in your day-to-day life, because their goal is to only check your speaking skills, nothing more than that. So this will be 4 to 5 questions, so it will last around 4 to 5 minutes. So each question you should answer like 45 seconds to 1 minute. So you should be preparing 3 to 4 sentences, but you don't have any time, you have to instantly reply it. The second one is more like a topic. You will be picking up a card called a cue card. There will be a few cards given, you randomly pick one. So this would be more like a topic where they will give you 1 minute to prepare. You can make a summary notes of, they'll be giving you scratch pad, you can make a notes of what you want to talk about, and then you're supposed to talk for 2 minutes. If you cannot talk for 2 minutes, they'll ask you to pick another cue card, or maybe they would ask you some more questions to make you prolong it for some more time. But it doesn't look well if you cannot talk for 2 minutes. So that's a basic thing. Make sure that you prepare enough to build yourself to be able to talk for 2 minutes if you pick up a random topic. The third one is the follow-up round, where they can ask from the topic that's being talked in the second round. Like let's say the follow-up card would be like, what's your favorite restaurant and what do you like the most? That could be a cue card question that is asked. Then the follow-up question could be something like, do you think a lot of families are depending on restaurants in the recent times instead of cooking at home? Is it a good thing for health? So they'll ask you questions like that. So more like following from the topic, right? Or they could go in a different direction again. This would be more like a discussion, more abstract ideas and issues. It's more like a discussion, a two-way communication. So this is a place where they would be talking something, you should listen and then also respond to it, your opinions and all of that. So this would again go for 4 to 5 minutes. So altogether the 3 sections combinedly, it should go for 11 to 15 minutes depending on the interviewer and how well you do. If they feel they have been able to assess you well, they might quickly close it. If they want to a little bit more longer, or you are talking a little bit more longer, they'll be patient enough to listen to you and make it a little bit more longer. So consistently on average you will see around 12 to 15 minutes as the speaking section. The bands that they will be used is this. Number 1, fluency and coherence. Again, using cohesive devices make a lot of advantages, right? Let you get a good score. In addition to this, I also believe we should invest our time into this. Additionally, right, in favor of this, so using a lot of cohesive devices would help you to get a better score. Use fluency, like you should not do stuttering, you should not give a huge passes, you should not do a lot of ums and all of that where you're trying to think around. Everyone does that. I'm not saying you don't do it, I also do it, everyone does that. It's just about trying to maintain the calmness and do not do it too frequently, do not stutter a lot. If you can communicate your ideas in a very fluent manner, you will be getting a good score here. The second part is again vocabulary. It's about how well and how diverse is your vocab. The grammar part, again the same story as in writing, how well you are able to structure your sentences, compound complex sentences in terms of the tenses, in terms of the subject verb agreements, prepositions, all of that. Finally, pronunciation. People get confused with the accent and pronunciation. You might have accent like R's coming in the way you talk sometimes, but as long as you pronunciate the words well, like you are talking or you're like making the sounds in the right way for them to understand what you're talking, you don't have to worry. The simple story to put it, if the listener, if the interviewer is able to understand you very easily, you are doing well in your speaking, you don't have to worry about it. That's the only thing you should keep in mind. You make it as simple as possible for them to listen. The way you speak, the way you sound, the way you give the passes and all, they will be very happy to give a very high score for you. Same story, you'll be given on 4 individual band scores. You'll be adding all 4 of them and divide by 4 to get your average speaking score. So that's how you'll be getting your scores, and that will be giving your overall score. So how do you get your overall score? Your listening plus reading plus writing plus speaking divided by 4 will give you, if you get let's say 6.8, it will be rounded off to 7. If you get 6.7, it will be rounded off to 6.5. The nearest 0.5 band will be what you'll be getting in your overall, the band score of IELTS. That's how you'll be getting your scores. Paying for work visa, how much band is necessary for Canada? I would say straight away 7.5 overall is what you should be looking at. That's, and generally we call it 8,777 for work professional people, the PR people for Canada. Listening is easiest, you get 8, and the rest all make sure that you try to get 777. So overall would come out 7.5 to 8, and you should be getting this. That's the highest recommended score to apply for PR or the work visa in Canada. That's what we will be strongly recommending. Right, the next question that we'll have is, can I prepare for IELTS on my own? So I have a question to all of you. So we would say the answer depends on you, but just a simple question. What do you think is the average IELTS score across the world? Like if you average band score, what do you think is it? We have data which is being shared in official website. It's not created by us. You can find if you go to IELTS.org and you look at test statistics. But a simple question to all of you, what do you think is the average IELTS score across the world? For academic and general, you can say it separately. There's slight difference in both, so you can tell me what do you think is the score. I think 7 for academic, 6.5. Six, okay, not bad, more or less on a very good level. So sometimes I see people saying 7.5 and all. So this is official data, though they have bifurcated by gender. I don't know what's the purpose, but let's do it. The academic, the overall world average is 6 to 6.1. And general, it's almost 6.5 to 6.6. As I said, the easiest is listening. You see the highest always in the listening compared to other sections, and the hardest would be the writing generally. See 5.7, 5.6 is the least of the 4, and writing 6.2, 6.1 is the least of the 4. So in either irrespective of academic or general, it's writing which is hardest, and speaking and reading depends on individual skills. That's the things where people struggle. But I would say you should ideally be trying to get your maximum score in listening, like 8 and 7.5 in listening. That's also hard to achieve, and try to get 7 and so on in the other 3 sections, so that you will be getting 7.5 or so. That should be your desired score. Right, so it's the same for India also. The overall, the Indian average would also, this is the Indian average, you can see 6.1 and 6.7, and Indians get relatively better in listening, the same story as the world, and the least in the writing part. Again the same story. Right, highest in listening and the least in writing, and that's the harder thing to score. To give you a more sense in terms of percentage, I'll tell you 7.5 is what we recommend for the general training candidates. If you're applying for Canada or Australia to get the maximum points and increase your chances of maximizing your PR or work visa, and this is achieved only by 20% of test takers, 19 to 20%. 7.5 is good for academic. At least you talk about 7 as the recommended for academic from our side. So almost 25 to 30% of only people only score 7 plus in academic. And the bare minimum according to us is to get 6.5. Yes, you can go with 5.5 and 6 also, I'm not denying it. But as a person who believes that you should give your best to get into best universities across the world, there's a bare minimum we would recommend in your academic, and this is also achieved only by 39% of the test takers. So more than 60 to 70% of people are struggling to get a required score in academic, and 80% of people are struggling to get the required score in general training. So which means people are reattempting it, or people are adjusting with the lower possible options for them. For general training, no choice, people reattempt. I've seen people attempting 4-5 times as well. For the academic, people adjust with what they get, might have an opportunity to get a better scholarship, get a better campus job, or maybe get a better university. They are missing out by just not focusing on this as one of the important aspect of your profile. So the next part is about we have a diagnostic test. I'm going to talk about this. We are offering a mini test, which is for 1.5 hours, which is 50% of the IELTS test, like 20 listening, 20 reading, 1 essay and 1 speaking task would be given to assess a student's current ability. So you will be getting a 30-minute feedback call. So we have general training and academic diagnostic test. So the thing is that we are charging 100 rupees for this. You'll be getting a 30-minute feedback call from our expert. So you will be assessed like, okay, you will be getting a 7, 6.5 in writing, speaking, listening, reading, and they'll give you a personalized preparation plan so that you will know where you stand and how you need to proceed forward. Maybe you're starting your preparation, maybe you're planning to take it after 1 year, but it's good to know where you stand now so that you can work on your fundamentals. Even though you don't really start preparing, if you have long duration, it's still not a bad thing to understand where you stand and how much of improvement you need to know, and work on basics like improve your reading, read newspapers, read good books, and maybe focus on listening like BBC or news or something, TED Talks and all of that, where you can improve your listening. So, and if you're taking it the next few weeks or months, it helps you to get feedback and a preparation plan so that you can actually work on the areas where you need to improve. On top of that, if you believe you can sit for a demo class and if you feel we can help you, our training is good, you can get additional discount on our courses so that you can know where you're struggling. Maybe you only need support on writing. Maybe you need only support through mocks. You're already doing good, you need only practice. So we provide all the cuts for the courses so you can only take the classes for where you're struggling and focus on it. So how long should I prepare for IELTS? This is a question that we constantly keep hearing, right? The answer is there's no fixed answer. Yes, I have seen people who have done it only in 5 hours. Like they just walk in with just knowing the pattern, taking 1 or 2 mocks and then doing pretty good, to people who have spent hundreds of hours and still not getting the desired band scores. The story is as simple as it all depends on where you are right now. Where you are right now. That's an important thing that you should understand. If you're already at a 6.5 to 7 band, yes, knowing a simple pattern, taking few tips and tricks in 10 to 20, 30 hours, you can get to 7.5. Maybe. It's not easy to grow from here. Just don't think everyone can get 7.5. But a half point, 0.5 band improvement can be done in 20 to 30 hours by, learning some tips and tricks and then trying to work on them and take few mocks, take feedback and grow. If you're at a 5 level where you're fundamentally struggling with your language skills, right? It's very, very hard to get to 6.5 to 7. Maybe you need to get a lot more, invest a lot more time working on your fundamental, structures, the grammar and all of that. So the important aspect that you need to understand is where you are right now. That's the reason why we recommend all our students to start off with this IELTS diagnostic test. The cost of IELTS is 14,000. Right now it's 14,500 to be frank. Even we recommend our students before, right, you take IELTS. There's no harm in taking it to know where you stand before you book your slot. Because if you rush and book a slot and then don't get a desired score, you will be paying it again. You will be spending another 14,500 to re-attempt it. It's much better to spend 100 rupees, know where you stand, understand how you need to grow. So the target could be 7, 7.5, 6.5, whatever your target being. The story is what's your current ability and where you are struggling. Like, is it writing, is it speaking, where can you improve more? And knowing the journey to get a desired score is important. Not just saying I want to get 7.5, 7.5, 7.5. Because the story is as simple as it, that if you believe that I can get 7.5, which is doable for most of the students, I'm not denying it, but the effort that you need to put would be different depending on your fundamental skills so far. So know where you stand, that's the first assessment you need to do. Then know the desired score and how much of a difference you have. If you ask me, a 40 to 50 hours of an effort in attending classes and taking mock tests can help you to improve a half to 1 band. That's an average improvement that we have seen. So if you are at a 6, you are at a 5.5, you can get a 6.5 or a 7 with this effort, right? 50 hours of an effort being earmarked, right? 20 hours of classes and then making mocks, writing, practice and all of that. So that's a good effort from me. Putting 50 to 60 hours is a good effort for a student. But it might not be sufficient for some of you depending on your current ability and target score. So saying that this is what you need to do is not a right thing. So what I would simply say is you should understand where you stand now, what's your desired score, and accordingly chart the journey. So some students, we provide them 2 months training because they need a lot of support and they need to grow. For some people it could be only 2 weeks training because they're already pretty good so that they will get their desired score. So it all depends on how much you need of a support and how much of practice you need and accordingly do it. That is where we actually take a lot of pride in customizing the courses. We do one-on-one sessions, live sessions, or we do recorded where people can do their own self-preparation or only mocks. whatever we do, we try to do more of a personalized thing. We don't want to put in your class of 5-10 students. We teach you something, you learn and move forward, because IELTS is something that you will only improve if you apply. You get mentorship at each stage. You have written an essay, you need to get feedback. You got a technique, you need to apply it and show it and then improve on it. So that's important, that you actually sit and take help on it. So that's what I would say. How long should I prepare? The answer is no fixed answer, but this is a benchmark that we have observed for our students. Of 50 to 60 hours, you will see an improvement of half to 1 band. 1.5 also happens, but an average of 1 can be year mark. That's a good thing you can look at. So 1 to 2 months of preparation based on how much time you can put per day, you can do this entire thing and get your IELTS done. The next thing is the preparation resources, right? So what are the available options we have? So most important thing that we recommend our students to do is this official Cambridge test. So this is the company which conducts, or the body, rather not a company, it's a university, so which conducts the IELTS. They set the question papers, they release the versions of the mock tests. The best part is that this will be a true replica, or give you a feel of actual IELTS exams. That's a good news, that you will be able to see the pattern, the type of questions, to check where you stand, how much you can improve. The difficulty here is, yes, you can check your listening and reading, you can check your scores and convert your raw score to a band score, but the writing and speaking, you need someone to evaluate, which is not done by these people. Right? That is where the problem is. You need a human, an expert to guide you. That is where we help a lot of students. But yes, you can go ahead and look at these books, you buy them, you download PDFs, so you can access this Cambridge test to practice and get a hang of it. Don't use the older editions. The 15th is the latest, you can go with them for your practice. Then there are some more websites which are very good, which we personally like and we would recommend our students to look at. These are free plus paid. They do have their own paid stuff, but they do give consistently free stuff as well, of writing, speaking, listening, with some material, some tips and all. So the blogs written by IELTS Liz, she makes some videos and the blog articles which are pretty good with in terms of tips and all. You can go to IELTS Liz, IELTS Mentor and IELTS Advantage. So these are some of the websites where you get to practice some questions, you get to get some tips to grow on all of that. Again, the problem with this is you don't get a human to support. Yes, there are things that you can use to grow, but the problem is that, right, someone needs to guide you with writing and speaking, so that you say, hey, you're not doing well here, this is a mistake you did, so that you grow from it, right? So that is where we can help you with. So the next one is the frequently asked questions. I'll take a couple more minutes and then I'll keep the session open for all of you to ask me questions. The first one is, which one is easier? A lot of students ask us, right, sir, I've heard IDP is better, I've heard British Council is better, my friend took it, my colleague took it, they got a better score, they said, this one is more easier, this one is... That's something that I don't really agree with. This is the body which sets the questions. On a particular day, if you're taking IELTS, irrespective of location and irrespective of company, British Council and IDP are only conducting the exams through centers. They don't set the questions, right? And these three combinedly own the IELTS as a brand. So no one wants to hurt others. There are three together in it. Yes, they are competing in a way, but there are three come together to do this. These people set the questions. On a particular day, it's the same question paper for everyone taking exam anywhere across the country. So how does it make different? Maybe the evaluation part, right? Someone is giving better score for writing and speaking. Reading and listening, it's done in the same way. There's no way someone can help you. But writing and speaking, I heard that British Council trainers are more lenient, they give me a better score. I heard IDP people are more lenient and they give me a better score. Not really. Right, I don't really agree with it, because we don't have enough data to judge, not just me, anyone to make a comment on this. If you have 1,000 people or hundreds of people taking and you see a difference, then you can comment. But average score of British Council and IDP stays the same, which is equal to the overall average. So I don't really see that there is any advantage of taking with one of them or the other. What I would rather ask you is, look at the convenience of yours. Maybe in your city or the place you want to take the test, IDP is doing a better in terms of the infrastructure than British Council. Talk to people who have taken, maybe visit it, see it, experience it in terms of the disturbances, in terms of the audio, because I have seen students who have had bad experience with the audio equipment given, the earphones or something. A lot of noise coming which couldn't let you focus. So you should not experience those things while taking the exam. So look at convenience and take a slot depending on what suits you better. My verdict is, there's nothing like something is easier than the other. Pick which one is suiting you based on your convenience in terms of location and the infrastructure being provided. Which one is easier, computer or paper based? Again, there's no answer for it. It depends on you. Yes, you might find something better than the other. For that purpose, what we recommend is to experience both. As I said, paper-based gives you 10 minutes transfer time, which means you might find it more comfortable to do listening. Whereas in computer-based, you have to do instantly then and there. Some students find it hard. Some people find it easier to underline the reading in a paper. You can underline the, the highlights and important aspects. You do have the highlighter in this also, but it might not be very convenient for you. But some people feel that their handwriting is not good and writing can be done better in typing than the piece of paper. So they might prefer computers. So at the end of the day, they have their own advantages and disadvantages. You need to choose based on what suits you. So we make our students take mocks of both. Our portal, you can attempt computer based as well as paper based. So you can decide what's better for you after attempting few. Then you take it accordingly. The results come faster for computer based than paper based. If you have a hurry, you should take this. The slots are more frequently available in computer based. 5 days a week these are open, whereas this one is only open 48 days. That's weekly one slot on average. So it's difficult to get it, but if you plan it properly, you can get a slot easily. Right, the rest all things are same, so there is no fixed answer for it. Experience it and decide on your own what suits you better. There is no unfair or easier or difficult thing per se. It's just more to do with your own personal preferences based on what suits you. Just choose it accordingly. The last one is the IELTS indicator test I was talking about. It's a test that you can take from home that they've started doing in COVID, but it is a replacement for academic. But the acceptance is less than 10%. Not many universities are accepting it. So for that reason, what we recommend is don't take it. Yes, the IELTS is put on hold, but they've started, resumed taking or giving the exams again. So within few weeks, from July, you'll see things being open and you can start taking the test. So you don't have to worry about attempting any of this. Make yourself take the academic test if you are going for higher studies. For universities, take general training if you're going for a work visa, and accordingly keep your score ready and apply for the universities or the PR as per your preferences. Right, that's it from my side. So I'm open to the questions if you have any questions. So we do have a demo class tomorrow for 1 hour to experience how our trainer teaches. If you're interested, you can join that. We do have the diagnostic test. I'll talk about that as well. We will do many more sessions. You can join us on IELTS, the higher studies, application process and all of that if you're interested. So just to go forward before I let you open for questions, you can go to our website, go to the store, right? You can click on the study abroad, and in IELTS courses you will see our free trial course. Also you see the diagnostic test you can take. You can write it, you will see and take feedback from our trainer, and you'll also get the scholarships and much more benefits based on how you perform, and get a preparation plan. You can just go here, make an account, you will find buy now button here because it's already enrolled for this account. You're not seeing it, but otherwise you will see it. And you just have to click on that. Right, click on the buy now button, like how you shop in Flipkart and Amazon. You can just pay 100 rupees and instantly access it in your dashboard and take the test. Right, so that's what we strongly recommend. Take this diagnostic test, see where you stand, and accordingly decide what you need to do if you're looking at IELTS. Maybe in 1 month, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 1 year. This is going to help you to assess where you stand and accordingly take your next steps in terms of IELTS. So any questions you have before we end? So that's it from my side. I've sort of gone a bit more, like 5 minutes to 10 minutes more. But I'm open to answer your questions. If you have any questions on maybe IELTS, maybe on higher studies in foreign universities, or maybe the PR thing. I'm not really that expert in PR, but I have some basic information if you need anything, and if I know, I can help you out with it. But for applications to universities and the IELTS preparation and all, you can ask me and I can guide you on that, not a problem. Any questions you have before we end? No? So if you have a questions, you can always reach out to us. You can drop a message to us on WhatsApp, or you would have received messages from us, so you can always reply back to us from that. Or maybe you can reach out to us through a chat box in our website. Maybe you can, hi Nitin. Do like and follow us, share with your friends if you believe we can, maybe help out more students with the information we're sharing. We'll keep doing sessions to abroad studies, US, UK, Canada, and this GRE, IELTS and all of that regularly, free sessions. you can definitely follow us. You had a band 7 earlier. Please help me out to suggest for 7.5 GT. So Nitin, I would suggest you strongly on this. See, it depends on where you struggled. So if it's listening, focus on listening. Obviously, you should be getting 8.5 in listening. So if you see our students, generally what we would recommend, right? You can see our success stories. I'll just show you briefly. Right, like our students who got 8, 9 in the listening. Most of the students would score more in the listening and the reading. So that's something that you should ideally be doing. Right, getting 8s and 9s is what you should ideally be doing. Okay, that's number 1. Okay, listening 8, reading 6.5. So that's in 2 areas I can see you should improve a lot, which is your reading and writing. If you can get 7 and 7 in both, right? So that will give you 8.5, sorry, 7.5, right? Reading, you can easily improve to 7.5. If you ask me, my strong suggestion would be that you should practice more. Okay, complete all Cambridge. So the thing is, you can actually do one thing. I do not remember the name of the book, but there is something which has more reading practices. So Cambridge is a good practice, but you can also follow a book. I'll just check once and get back to on the title. I'm not really recalling it. Otherwise, another option I would suggest strongly is to take this test. You will be able to sit with our trainer for 30 minutes, our IELTS trainer, and she would be guiding you based on how well you have done in each section, right? In terms of a call to assess and tell you where you're have to improve in your reading. So, and she can give you more materials that you can practice in terms of reading. My strong recommendation is practice reading. There are a lot more resources that you can use, like Barron's has IELTS book, which you can follow. Also, other resources I have recommended. Cambridge has 15 editions, right? Anything beyond 5th, 6th edition you can do. Have you completed all of them? In that case, you can look at other private publications as well. Like Makkar IELTS is another thing which you can use as well to do it. Writing, I would say it's all about structures and knowing the cohesive devices, right? There are 6 types of task 2 essays. You need to know the structures, introduction, body paragraphs, and how do you do conclusion. And then you should know some cohesive devices and some vocabulary about the topics, and that will be the preparation you need to do and do well in the exam. If you already got 6.5, in that case, you should ideally be able to improve much better once you start using the structures and cohesive devices. Shika, if you need to take IELTS exam every 2 years once we went there, no, you don't need to. IELTS is valid for 2 years. If you have taken it now 2021, you can apply till 2023. Once you've gotten into a country, you don't have to take IELTS. People who try to apply for PRs and all, sometimes they need to take, but not for education or some other purpose. Once you enter through an IELTS, you don't need to reattempt every 2 years or something. Director Faith, I don't know what you meant by Stanford University. If I have a specific question, I can help you. Otherwise, I don't know what the question was. Any more questions before we end? Kevin, for work visa, how many attempts you have? No limit for IELTS attempts. Whether it's for work visa, general training or academic, you can attempt as many things as you want. There's no limit to the number of attempts you can put for IELTS. So we have seen people who have attempted 8 times, 9 times also, especially for the work. People don't do for academic that many times, but for work, the PR purpose, the general training, we have seen candidates who have been trying to get 7.5 and tried multiple times. But there's no limit per se. But the point is the cost of it is 14,000. You understand that? The impact of it is not a small thing, right? Putting effort and spending that much amount of money. But yes, if by chance you didn't do well, you can always go. Yes, Nitin, I would strongly recommend you to take this one. I know you have already taken actual IELTS and you have a sense of it, but this would be a strong recommendation. So this is simple, right? I was showing you, go to the store, you go to gtcube.com, go to the store, click on study abroad, you see the general and academic, whatever the test you're trying to take. I think you're looking at general training for 7.5. Click on this and click on the buy now button, make an account, and then you will be able to attempt it. It's a 1.5 hour test, and then you will be getting to talk to our trainer for the 30-40 minute call, and she would guide you with the exact material as well if you need to prepare. Right, if you feel that you can take, we'll do personal sessions, you can take 2-3 personal sessions for reading as well or writing as well to improve, so that you can get the tips and tricks. That's the second thing. But what I would say, we always prefer this method because we don't want to give a generic advice because it does not suit everyone. Yes, we do give generic, but we would prefer to give a personalized advice based on your performance or anyone's performance. So our path is always to take this test. So we could have given this for free. The reason why we are charging is because we have felt that people are not appreciating when you do it for free. That's the experience that we had, that we want people to respect our time and effort. So that's why we have put a very nominal price, right? So just to make you feel that we don't really make a lot of money per se from 100, right? But the goal is to make sure that we get serious candidates who take it and give us respect in terms of the effort that's being put from our side. Right, perfect. I hope that's it for everyone. So thanks a lot for joining. I hope this session was useful in helping out understanding the fundamentals. So you can reach out to us through the chat box here if you have any questions, or maybe reach out to us WhatsApp. And do follow us and like us. We will be doing lot many sessions on IELTS and GRE and other exams for higher studies abroad and general work purpose and all. So you will be notified when we come up with more sessions and all. Thanks a lot and good night and goodbye. Thank you.